I died believing Trump would save America. But in those 23 minutes of death, Jesus showed me how Satan has been playing both sides of American politics for decades. The truth about what's really controlling our leaders will make you question everything. My name is Michael Davis. I'm 42 years old, and I need to tell you something that's going to upset people on both sides of the political aisle. But if you love America, if you love your family, if you want to understand why our country is tearing itself apart, you need to hear what Jesus showed me during the 23 minutes I was clinically dead. I wasn't always political. Growing up in Ohio, I was just a regular guy. Worked construction, loved football, went to church on Sundays with my wife Lisa and our 2 kids, Emma, 16, and Jake, 14. We had a good life. Simple, but good. I voted, but I didn't obsess over it. Politics was something that happened in Washington, not something that consumed my every waking moment. That all changed in 2016. When Trump came down that escalator, something awakened in me. Here was finally someone who wasn't a politician, someone who talked like regular people, someone who promised to drain the swamp and make America great again. I started watching Fox News religiously. I joined Facebook groups. I went to rallies. At first, Lisa thought it was cute. She'd tell her friends that Mike was finally paying attention to politics. But it wasn't cute for long. What started as interest became obsession. What started as hope became rage. I found myself spending hours every day reading articles, watching videos, arguing with people online about stolen elections, deep state conspiracies, and the evil Democrats trying to destroy our country. Every conversation at the dinner table became political. When Jake wanted help with his homework, I'd lecture him about how liberal teachers were brainwashing kids. When Emma wanted to talk about her day at school, I'd ask if any of her teachers had said anything political. My family started walking on eggshells around me. Lisa tried to talk to me about it. One night after I'd spent 3 hours on Truth Social instead of helping Jake with his science project, she told me I wasn't the same person she married. She said the kids barely knew their father anymore, that all I cared about was politics. I told her all I cared about was saving this country. I said while she was worrying about homework, America was being destroyed from within. Someone had to pay attention. Someone had to fight back. But I wasn't fighting back. I was just angry. Constantly, endlessly angry. At Democrats, at Renos, at the media, at anyone who didn't see what I saw. The anger consumed me. It poisoned every relationship I had. My brother Mark, who voted for Biden, stopped talking to me after I called him a communist at our mother's 70th birthday party. My best friend since high school, Tom, blocked me on social media after I posted that all Democrats were enemies of America. Even at church, I couldn't let it go. When Pastor Williams preached about loving your enemies, I argued with him after service about how you can't love people who are trying to destroy your country. When he talked about unity and healing, I told him he was being naive about the spiritual war we were fighting. I was right about the spiritual war. I just didn't understand who the real enemy was. The day I died started like any other day in January 2025. Trump had announced a rally in Columbus, and I'd driven 3 hours to be there. I'd been to dozens of rallies by then. They were the only place where I felt normal anymore, surrounded by thousands of people who saw the world the same way I did. I remember standing in that crowd, wearing my red MAGA hat, holding a sign that said, "Stop the Steal," feeling like I was part of something bigger than myself. Trump was on stage talking about how we were going to take our country back, how we were going to drain the swamp, how we were going to make America great again. I was recording it on my phone, planning to post it later with some caption about how this was what real patriotism looked like. My heart was pounding with excitement and adrenaline. This is it, I thought. This is how we save America. That's when the pain hit. It started as pressure in my chest, like someone was sitting on me. I thought maybe I was just excited, pumped up from the rally. But then the pressure became crushing pain, radiating down my left arm and up into my jaw. The crowd around me was cheering, but their voices started to sound far away. I tried to call out for help, but I couldn't breathe. The pain was unlike anything I'd ever experienced. It felt like my chest was being torn apart from the inside. I dropped my phone and grabbed my chest, gasping for air. The people around me noticed something was wrong. Someone shouted that this guy needed help, that we needed medical over here. But it was too late. I felt my knees give out and I collapsed right there in the middle of thousands of Trump supporters. The last thing I remember hearing was someone yelling that they needed to call 911, that this man was having a heart attack. Then everything went black. But death wasn't the end. It was the beginning of the most important education of my life. The first thing I noticed was the silence. Not just quiet, complete, absolute silence. The kind of silence that makes you realize how much noise normally fills your head. No crowd noise, no political thoughts, no anger, no fear. Just peace. I found myself floating above the rally, looking down at my own body. Paramedics were working on me, doing CPR, trying to get my heart started again. I could see Lisa in the crowd. She'd driven separately and had been searching for me when I collapsed. She was crying, begging God not to let me die. Watching her cry broke something in me. When was the last time I'd really looked at my wife? When was the last time we'd talked about something other than politics? When was the last time I'd told her I loved her without immediately launching into some rant about the state of the country? But I didn't have long to think about it, because suddenly I wasn't at the rally anymore. I was being pulled upward through what felt like layers of reality, until I found myself in a place that was unlike anything I'd ever experienced. It was a realm of pure light, but not the harsh light of the sun or electric bulbs. This was warm, living light that seemed to emanate love itself. I felt more peaceful than I had in years. All the anger, all the rage, all the political hatred that had consumed me, it was gone. In its place was a deep sense of coming home. That's when I saw him walking toward me. I knew immediately who it was, even though he didn't look like any of the paintings or statues I'd seen in church. Jesus was tall, with kind eyes, and a presence that radiated both infinite love and absolute authority. When he looked at me, I felt seen in a way I'd never experienced. Not judged, but completely known and unconditionally loved. Jesus said my name, and his voice was like warm honey and thunder at the same time. He welcomed me and called me his son. I fell to my knees, or at least I tried to. In this place, I didn't seem to have a physical body, just my consciousness, my soul. I whispered to him that I had tried to serve him, that I had tried to fight for his values, for his country. Jesus smiled, but there was sadness in his eyes. He told me he knew I had tried, that my heart was sincere. But he said I was fighting the wrong battle against the wrong enemy. When I asked what he meant, instead of answering directly, Jesus gestured, and suddenly we were standing in what looked like a massive war room. But this wasn't an earthly war room. This was a spiritual command center, and it was terrifying. In the center of the room was a huge table with what looked like a map of America, but instead of showing states and cities, it showed spiritual territories. Dark shadows covered most of the map, and these shadows were moving, spreading, growing stronger. Around the table sat beings that looked human at first glance, but when I looked closer, I could see they weren't human at all. Their eyes were empty, cold, filled with an ancient hatred that made my blood run cold. These were demons, and they were discussing strategy. The American project is proceeding exactly as planned, one of them was saying. We've successfully divided them into warring camps. They think they're fighting each other, but they're really fighting for us. Another demon nodded. The beauty is that both sides think they're the righteous ones. Both sides think God is on their side. Both sides believe they're saving America while they're actually destroying it. A third demon pulled up what looked like a holographic display showing news footage, social media posts, and political rallies. Look at this, it said with glee. Families destroyed over political differences. Churches split down the middle. Best friends becoming enemies. Americans so focused on hating each other that they can't see us pulling the strings. I watched in horror as the display showed scene after scene of Americans at each other's throats. Trump supporters and Biden supporters screaming at each other. Families not speaking because of political differences. churches where members walked out during sermons that didn't align with their political views, social media feeds full of hatred and accusations. But Lord, I whispered to Jesus, aren't there real differences? Aren't there real issues we need to fight for? There are indeed real issues, Jesus said gently. Abortion is real. Religious freedom is real. Justice is real. Compassion for the poor and vulnerable is real. But look closer, Michael. Look at how these real issues are being used. The demon's display zoomed in on specific examples. I saw a man who claimed to be pro-life spending hours posting hateful comments about Democrats while ignoring the homeless man who slept outside his office building every night. I saw a woman who claimed to care about social justice cutting ties with her conservative sister, who volunteered at a crisis pregnancy center. You see, said the lead demon, we don't create the issues. We just manipulate how humans respond to them. We take their legitimate concerns and twist them into weapons of division. We make them care more about being right than being loving. We make them care more about winning than about truth. Jesus turned to me. Michael, tell me, in the last 5 years, how many homeless people did you feed while you were fighting for conservative values? I felt ashamed. The answer was 0. How many troubled teenagers did you mentor while you were posting about the moral decline of America? Again, 0. How many immigrants did you help while you were arguing about border security? I began to understand. None, Lord. I was so busy fighting the political war that I forgot about the actual war. And what is the actual war? Jesus asked. The scene around us changed again. Now we were looking at the same spiritual map of America, but this time I could see points of light scattered across the darkness. These lights were small, but they were growing brighter. The actual war, Jesus said, is between love and hate, between truth and deception, between unity and division. The enemy doesn't care whether Americans vote Republican or Democrat. He cares about destroying their souls, their families, their ability to love one another. I watched as the points of light grew stronger. Zooming in, I could see what they represented. A grandmother praying for her grandson who had overdosed, regardless of his political views. A black pastor and a white police officer working together to clean up their neighborhood. A Democrat and a Republican who disagreed on policy, but came together to help a family whose house had burned down. These are my true warriors, Jesus said. They understand that the real battle isn't fought with votes or protests or social media posts. It's fought with love, with service, with sacrifice. But Lord, I asked, what about the evil in government? What about corrupt politicians? What about policies that go against your word? Do you think I am unaware of these things? Jesus asked with a gentle smile. Do you think I am not sovereign over human governments? Remember, Michael, I told my followers to render unto Caesar what is Caesar's, and unto God what is God's. I never told them to make Caesar into God, or to act as if Caesar's kingdom was my kingdom. The scene shifted again, and now I was watching my own life play out like a movie. I saw myself gradually becoming more and more consumed with politics. I watched as my love for God got twisted into hatred for my political enemies. I saw how my desire to serve Christ got perverted into serving a political movement. I watched myself at the dinner table, lecturing my children about politics instead of asking about their dreams, their fears, their hopes. I saw myself on Sundays, sitting in church but thinking about political strategy instead of worshiping God. I saw myself lying in bed next to Lisa, scrolling through political news instead of talking to my wife. This is what the enemy does, Jesus explained. He takes good desires, the desire for justice, for righteousness, for a better world, and he corrupts them. He makes you think that political victory is spiritual victory. He makes you think that defeating your political enemies is the same as advancing my kingdom. I was crying now, tears of shame and regret. Lord, I wasted so much time. I hurt so many people. I destroyed my relationships for nothing. Not for nothing, Jesus said kindly. For a lie. But lies can be forgiven. Relationships can be healed. Time can be redeemed. He showed me another vision then, a vision of what could be. I saw Americans from both political parties coming together, not by abandoning their convictions, but by putting their love for each other above their need to be right. I saw conservatives and liberals working side by side to help the homeless, to fight trafficking, to protect children, to care for the elderly. I saw churches that welcomed both Republicans and Democrats, where people could disagree on politics but unite in worship. I saw families healing from political divisions. I saw social media feeds full of encouragement instead of outrage. Is this possible? I asked. All things are possible, Jesus said. But it requires my people to remember who their real enemy is. It requires them to remember that their battle is not against flesh and blood, but against spiritual forces of evil. It requires them to fight with my weapons: love, truth, compassion, forgiveness, instead of the enemy's weapons of hatred, deception, pride, and unforgiveness. The vision faded, and we were back in the realm of light. Michael, Jesus said, I'm sending you back. Your family needs you. Your community needs you. Your country needs you. But not as a political warrior, as a healing agent, as a bridge builder, as someone who understands that the real battle is for souls, not votes. But Lord, I protested, how can I make a difference? I'm just one person. I've already destroyed so many relationships. Who's going to listen to me? I will give you the words, Jesus promised. I will open the doors. Start with your family. Start with your church. Start with your neighbors. Show them love instead of hatred. Show them unity instead of division. Show them that there's a better way. He placed his hand on my forehead, and I felt power flow through me like electricity. Remember everything you've seen. Remember everything I've told you. And remember, I am with you always. The light around us grew brighter and brighter until everything was white. Then, suddenly, I felt myself being pulled back, down through the layers of reality, back toward the noise and chaos of the physical world. The first thing I heard was the steady beep of a heart monitor. The first thing I felt was pain in my chest and the scratch of hospital sheets against my skin. I opened my eyes to see Lisa sitting beside my bed, holding my hand, her face swollen from crying. Mike? She whispered when she saw my eyes open. Oh, thank God you're awake. The doctors called it a miracle. I'd been clinically dead for 23 minutes. By all medical standards, I should have had massive brain damage. But all my tests came back normal. The cardiologist said he'd never seen anything like it. But the real miracle wasn't my physical recovery. It was what happened to my heart. For the first time in years, when I looked at my wife, I saw her, really saw her. Not as someone who didn't understand the political crisis facing our country, but as the woman I'd fallen in love with, the mother of my children, my partner in life. When the kids came to visit, I didn't lecture them about politics. I just held them and told them I loved them. It took me several days to tell Lisa about what I'd experienced. I was afraid she wouldn't believe me. But when I finished my story, she started crying again. Not tears of sadness this time, but tears of relief. I was losing you, she said, not to death, but to hatred. I watched the man I married disappear, replaced by someone I didn't recognize. I prayed every night that God would bring my husband back to me. That was 6 months ago. Our life is completely different now. I still have political views. I still care about the issues that matter to me, but I don't let those views consume me anymore. I don't let them define my relationships or my worth as a person. I went back to my church and apologized to Pastor Williams for the way I'd argued with him. I called my brother Mark and asked for his forgiveness. I reached out to my friend Tom, and we're slowly rebuilding our friendship. More importantly, I've started living like Jesus showed me. Instead of just posting about pro-life values on social media, I volunteer at a crisis pregnancy center. Instead of just complaining about the homeless problem, I serve meals at a local shelter. Instead of just arguing about immigration policy, I help teach English to refugees. And you know what I've discovered? When you're actually serving people, when you're actually making a difference in real lives, political differences become much less important. The woman I serve meals to every Tuesday doesn't care how I voted. The teenager I mentor doesn't ask about my political affiliation. They just need love, hope, and practical help. I've also discovered that there are people on both sides of the political aisle who feel exactly like I do. Tired of the hatred, tired of the division, ready for something better. I've met Democrats who love Jesus just as much as I do, even though we disagree on some policies. I've met Republicans who are just as concerned about helping the poor and marginalized as any progressive. The demons Jesus showed me were right about one thing. Americans have been turned against each other, but they were wrong about the outcome. Because now I see their strategy, and I refuse to play their game anymore. If you're watching this and you recognize yourself in my story, if you've become consumed with political hatred, if you've let politics damage your relationships, if you've forgotten that your real battle is spiritual, not political, I have a message for you from Jesus. He loves you. He sees your heart. He knows you want to make a difference. You want to serve Him. You want to make the world better. But He's calling you to a different kind of battle. A battle fought with love instead of hatred. A battle fought with service instead of social media posts. A battle fought with forgiveness instead of revenge. Stop letting the enemy use your good intentions against you. Stop letting him turn your love for God into hatred for your neighbors. Stop fighting his battles with Satan's weapons. Instead, fight the real enemy. Fight poverty by serving the poor. Fight injustice by defending the vulnerable. Fight corruption by living with integrity. Fight division by building bridges. Fight hatred by spreading love. Your country doesn't need more political warriors. It needs more peacemakers. It needs more bridge builders. It needs more people who understand that the kingdom of God is not about politics. It's about love. My name is Michael Davis. I died believing that politics could save America. Jesus sent me back to tell you that only love can save America. Only love can save your family. Only love can save your soul. The choice is yours. Will you keep fighting for a political kingdom that will pass away? Or will you start building God's kingdom that will last forever? Don't make the same mistake I did. Don't waste years of your life fighting the wrong battle against the wrong enemy. Choose love. Choose unity. Choose Jesus. Because in the end, that's the only choice that matters.